Joining me is Andrew Neil, broadcaster, columnist and chairman of the Spectator magazine, and visiting Australia again. Andrew Neil, great to see you again. I know you follow these things very closely. China must be laughing at Macron and his visit. He's split the West joint defence and given China reason to think that if there's a war, France, for one, won't stand in China's way.
Oh, he's played right into their hands, which is probably why they are very pleased with his visit. The timing of his remarks couldn't be worse. We know that China's racking up the pressure on Taiwan, doing more and more military maneuvers and training just off the coast of Taiwan. So it was a time when the West and the allies should be showing a common line, not trying to be divided. He said that he thought we could trust the Chinese to speak sense to the Russians, which is fantasy bordering on complete nonsense, because the Chinese love the war in Ukraine because it focuses the West's resources away from the Indo-Pacific region to Ukraine and to Eastern Europe. And of course, China wants to cause dissension between Europe and the United States. And that's precisely what President Macron's remarks have helped to sow. Indeed, they're asking in America, well, because Macron implies that Taiwan is a far-off country of which we in Europe know nothing. Well, if that's the case, Ukraine's pretty far from the United States too. So why should the Americans bother with Ukraine if the Europeans don't care about Taiwan? I mean, all around it couldn't be worse for a united Western front against the danger to Taiwan.
Honestly, Macron, he's got this Napoleon complex, but without some Napoleon smarts, or at least the smarts until he started a war he couldn't finish. It's interesting, though, isn't it, Andrew Neil, that in the end, the countries that we rely on most for our defence, the most reliable ones, turn out to be the ones that share our language and much of our culture. In our case, Britain and the US. I don't think that's a coincidence, is it?
No, I don't think it is, and there's a long history of this as well. I mean, the first thing I would say is that the diesel submarine deal that was originally done by Australia when Mr. Turnbull was Prime Minister, these diesel submarines are entirely the wrong ones for the Pacific. They were not the state-of-the-art technology. They didn't have the range that you require in an ocean the size of the Pacific. Australia has now done a deal which will involve, first of all, American off-the-shelf submarines, the Virginia class, and then new superior submarines built by Britain and Australia together, which will be best in class, which will be state-of-the-art, nuclear-powered. They can stay under the water for as long as you want. Australia needs the best up against a country like China. It will now have the best. It didn't have the best beforehand. And the other part of this arrangement is the increasing integration of all of our forces. So Australian crews will soon be training with American crews. American crews will then be training with Australian crews. The British and Australians will be training together. So will the British and the Americans. It brings all three of us together in a common purpose. We're already together in the Five Eyes, the most sophisticated intelligence network in the world, of which Australia, Britain and the United States are pivotal in key parts. This builds on that. It brings in artificial intelligence developments, robotic developments, digital technology developments. In the face of a common dictatorial authoritarian threat, it brings the democracies together. What can be bad about that?
Yeah, it's interesting you say common purpose, but I think people continually underrate the importance of culture, common values, common purpose. And if you start trying to break through that, I mean, sometimes you have to, you will find there's perhaps a lack of trust and you're making assumptions that don't necessarily follow through. But let me give you another example of China playing the West for fools. It completely sucked in Pope Francis and made a secret deal with him 5 years ago that it would stop shutting down Catholic churches, stop persecuting the churchmen, throwing them in jails, if those church leaders swore loyalty to the Communist Party, the leaders in China. It would even let the Pope choose the bishops. But the Vatican now admits that this deal has been broken, this shameful deal. China has just appointed a new Bishop of Shanghai, a supporter to the dictatorship without asking the Vatican's permission, and it's not the bloke that the Pope wanted, who is Bishop Ma, who's been under house arrest for more than 10 years. for resigning from China's official patriotic association. Andrew Neil, the Catholic Church under this Pope has been shockingly weak in fighting tyranny, whether in China or in Russia.
Well, it's a deal with the devil. And I would have thought that the Catholic Church didn't do deals with the devil. I mean, last time I looked, I thought Christian churches were against the devil. No, they didn't do deals with them, but it seems that they're prepared to do anything that's required if they can get into China and to extend their reach inside China. Is it worth the candle? What does it achieve in the end? I mean, China is a country which is currently going through essentially the extermination of the Uyghurs. Why would you want to deal with a country like that? We've moved into an age now in which, having cozied up to China, and by the way, not just the Catholic Church, Wall Street, German exporters, all manner of Western capitalism, Western countries were prepared to deal with China. But we now see what China looks like. We now see it as an oppressive, authoritarian regime and an expansionist, aggressive one determined to dominate the East Pacific, a country which spends billions and billions of dollars on military and defense, but 3 times more than that on surveying its own people. We are now beginning to uncouple from China. We've seen the light, and I think in this case, the Catholic Church is flying in the face of history. It doesn't realize what's really happening, and it will rue the day it's gone down this route. It does it no good whatsoever.
And how often do we have to have it said? I thought Chamberlain proved it. You cannot trust the word of a dictator. What makes them think that they can civilize a dictator? It's just bizarre. Andrew Neil, lovely to catch up with you again. I hope to see you on the weekend. Thank you so much for your time.